You are listening to Still Within, a place where ancient Stoic wisdom becomes your quiet companion in the night. As you settle into rest, allow your breath to slow, your body to soften, and your mind to open. Tonight we travel back nearly 2,000 years, into the quiet chambers of an emperor who carried the weight of the world upon his shoulders, Marcus Aurelius. The world knew him as the philosopher-king, the ruler of Rome at the height of its power. Armies marched at his command, laws were written by his hand, and the fate of millions rested on his decisions. And yet, within the stillness of his private thoughts, Marcus revealed something rare: the deep struggle of a man who was both human and burdened, who searched for calm even as the empire demanded everything. Close your eyes. Imagine the flickering light of an oil lamp in a marble chamber. Scrolls are stacked on a wooden table. Outside, Rome does not sleep. Its streets hum with distant footsteps. Soldiers guard the gates, and whispers of unrest move through the air. But here in this small, dimly lit room sits Marcus Aurelius, writing words not for the Senate, nor for history, but for himself. Words that would one day remind countless generations, including you tonight, that true power lies not in empires, but in the mastery of the self. And so we begin, not with a grand speech or a decree carved in stone, but with a whisper, his own voice, speaking softly to himself in the pages of what we now call meditations. These were not meant for the eyes of others. They were reminders, gentle instructions for his own weary soul, notes about patience, about rising each morning ready to meet hardship, about remembering that even emperors are mortal. Think of the contrast: the mightiest man in the world, seated in silence, reminding himself not to be angry, not to be vain, not to fear what tomorrow might bring. Isn't that a burden we all know? The quiet battles no one else sees, the struggles hidden beneath the surface of our daily roles. Tonight, Marcus's story is also your story. The empire may not rest on your shoulders, but responsibilities, expectations, and worries can feel just as heavy. Let the rhythm of his reflections guide you. As we step deeper into his life and the empire he led, remember this: no matter the scale of our burdens, peace is always found within. Marcus Aurelius was born into a Rome of grandeur and expectation. From the beginning, his life was marked not by freedom, but by duty. His father died when Marcus was very young, leaving him under the care of powerful relatives and watchful guardians. By the age of 12, he was already dressed in the philosopher's cloak, preferring simplicity over luxury, discipline over indulgence. Imagine a boy of noble blood surrounded by marble halls and servants, yet choosing to sleep on a hard bed, practicing restraint as if preparing for a life of storms. Rome itself was immense, a tapestry woven across continents: Africa, Asia, Europe, all bound by the eagle of the empire. But an empire that vast was never at peace. Borders burned with tension. Ambition pulled at generals. The Senate plotted in whispers. The people demanded bread, justice, protection. To be the one who would inherit all this was not a gift, but a trial waiting to unfold. When fate placed the purple robe of the emperor upon Marcus's shoulders, the weight was far more than fabric. Each morning he awoke not to a quiet life of study, but to a flood of petitions, crises, and decisions that could shape millions of lives. Imagine rising at dawn, greeted not by silence but by the anxious voices of advisors. Famine in one province, rebellion in another, plague creeping through the streets of Rome. Every hour demanded judgment. Every judgment carried consequences too vast to predict. Yet Marcus was not a man driven by conquest or thirst for glory. Unlike emperors before him, men who carved their names into history with swords and triumphal arches, Marcus longed for philosophy. He desired the calm of reflection, the companionship of wisdom, the quiet of writing. Still, history is rarely merciful to such desires. War called him to the northern frontiers. Disease consumed his people. Betrayal and corruption tested his trust. Leadership demanded that he trade the life he wanted for the life he was given. And so, in the silence of night, when Rome's endless noise softened, Marcus would turn inward. By the glow of a flickering lamp, he filled page after page, not with decrees for the empire, but with guidance for himself. These notes, never meant for others, became the meditations. In them, the emperor confessed his struggles, counseled his own weakness, and anchored himself in Stoic truths: that life is short, that virtue is the only good, that calm is found within, even when the world demands everything. Think of the paradox. the mightiest man of his time, reminding himself daily not to be proud, not to be bitter, not to cling to power. It is a mirror for us all. We may not rule Rome, but each of us carries burdens, responsibilities, pressures, unspoken fears. Marcus shows us that the empire we most need to govern is the restless empire of our own mind. The northern frontiers of Rome were restless. Beyond the empire's borders lay tribes who refused submission, fierce warriors hardened by cold winters and untamed lands. To the Romans, they were both a threat and a reminder that no empire, however vast, could ever control all of human will. For Marcus Aurelius, their resistance became an inescapable burden. He had not sought war, but war came to him. Picture the emperor not in a marble palace, but in a military camp along the Danube River. The air sharp with frost, the night broken by the crackling of fires and the murmurs of soldiers. Mud clings to boots, tents flap in the wind, and the scent of steel and smoke hangs heavy. In this harsh world, Marcus lived not as a distant ruler, but among his men. He shared their hardships, ate their rations, endured their winters. Even as his body weakened, racked by illness, drained by fatigue, his spirit remained steady. Yet the weight was more than military. Back in Rome, plague spread like a shadow, claiming lives without discrimination. Slaves, citizens, even generals. Letters brought news of loss, unrest, and hunger. Imagine the emperor reading those reports by lamplight, each one a reminder that while he battled enemies at the frontier, another invisible enemy consumed his people at home. Leadership in such times was not triumph but endurance. And still, in the quiet of his tent, Marcus turned inward. He wrote to himself words that echo even now. Do not complain about what lies outside your control. The universe is change. Life is opinion. He reminded himself that fear cannot alter fate, that death spares no one, that the only true possession we hold is the character we shape each day. Consider how remarkable this is. A man facing war, plague, and betrayal, yet pausing each night to ask not how he could conquer others, but how he could conquer himself. He knew the empire might fracture, his victories might fade, but the virtues he practiced, patience, justice, humility, were eternal. For us, his example becomes a quiet guide. We too face our frontiers not with swords and legions, but with anxieties, responsibilities, and losses that press upon us. We cannot always choose our battles, but like Marcus, we can choose how to meet them. Will we rage, despair, and crumble? Or will we breathe, reflect, and remember that strength begins within? And perhaps this is why his meditations, scribbled in the harsh silence of military camps, still reach across centuries. They are not the words of an untouchable ruler, but of a man reminding himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. As you listen, let these reflections settle over you like a blanket. You are not alone in your burdens. Even an emperor knew the weight of struggle, and even an emperor found peace by turning inward. In the stillness of the night, Marcus Aurelius turned to his journals. They were never written for the world's eyes, never crafted to impress or persuade. They were private reminders, whispered notes to himself, shaped in solitude. What we now know as meditations is not a polished philosophy, but the living record of a man wrestling with life's storms. And in those pages we find lessons that outlast empires. He reminded himself to rise each morning ready to meet challenges. He wrote that people would be selfish, ungrateful, even cruel, and yet he could choose patience. He told himself not to be distracted by the pursuit of fame, wealth, or praise, because such things pass as quickly as smoke in the wind. He reminded himself of death, not to instill fear, but to anchor gratitude for each fleeting moment of breath. Consider these words: you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. In a world where we often rush, where days blur and responsibilities pile high, such a reminder is startlingly clear. Life is fragile, and awareness of that fragility is what sharpens our appreciation. Marcus was not obsessed with death. He was devoted to life by remembering its limits. He also wrote of perspective. When overwhelmed, he advised himself to look from above, to imagine the vastness of time, the sweep of history, and the countless souls who once worried over problems now forgotten. How small are our troubles when set against eternity? This view did not diminish his responsibilities, it steadied them. By seeing the greater whole, he could act with calm, with clarity, with purpose. Perhaps the most profound theme in meditations is control. Marcus returned again and again to the truth that we cannot govern external events, only our responses. Armies rebel, disease spreads, fortune changes in an instant. But within the mind lies freedom. The emperor, burdened by the chaos of empire, sought refuge not in power but in self-mastery. And that lesson speaks as urgently to us today as it did to him. Pause for a moment and reflect. What burdens press on your shoulders? Work, relationships, the weight of expectation? Or the quiet anxieties you carry into the night? Like Marcus, you may not control what comes, but you do control how you meet it. Each thought, each response, each small act of virtue is within your grasp. It is striking that the man who ruled millions wrote not of conquest but of kindness, not of monuments but of humility. He urged himself to remain just even when others betrayed him. He counseled himself to avoid anger, for anger consumes the one who carries it more than the one who receives it. He spoke of the fleeting nature of fame, reminding himself that even the greatest names are soon forgotten. What remains is not applause but character, and so his words, once private, have become a lantern for those who walk in darkness. They shine not because they come from an emperor, but because they come from a fellow human who struggled, faltered, and sought peace just as we do. His empire has long since fallen, his statues weathered, but his reflections endure. As you lie here listening, let his voice guide you inward. Imagine Marcus seated in his tent on a cold frontier night, writing by the dim light of a lamp. Imagine him pausing, weary from the day's burdens, reminding himself to breathe, to be patient, to act with justice. Those same reminders can be yours. And here, gently, let me invite you. If these reflections speak to you, if this story brings calm to your night, consider supporting this journey. Like Marcus writing for himself yet leaving a gift for us all, you can help ensure that these timeless voices continue to reach others. A simple share, a quiet click to subscribe becomes a small act of keeping wisdom alive. Remember, Marcus did not seek an audience, yet his words endure because they carry truth. You too can carry these truths into your own choices, your own days, your own silent battles. The weight of an empire is never carried without cost. As Marcus Aurelius entered the later years of his reign, the burdens only grew heavier. One of the most devastating trials came in the form of the Antonine Plague, a relentless disease that swept across the empire, likely carried home by soldiers returning from the east. Towns were emptied, cities fell silent, and the air itself seemed to tremble with fear. The emperor did not retreat to safety. He walked among his people, organized relief, and ensured that aid flowed where it was most needed. In Rome, the sick filled the streets, yet Marcus reminded himself and those around him that fear was not the answer. "Do not imagine you will live 10,000 years, he wrote. "Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." His calm steadied the trembling hearts of millions. But disease was not the only shadow. War pressed on the empire's frontiers, and betrayal crept within its walls. One of his most painful trials was the rebellion of Avidius Cassius, a trusted general who declared himself emperor while Marcus still lived. For many rulers, such treachery would have sparked rage, vengeance, and bloodshed, yet Marcus prepared to forgive, even if it meant embracing the man who sought his throne. He wrote that vengeance serves no purpose. The empire is not strengthened by cruelty, but by justice tempered with mercy. When Cassius was killed by his own men before Marcus could even respond, the emperor mourned not the loss of power, for none was lost, but the loss of a soul who had chosen ambition over virtue. He urged his subjects to show restraint, forbidding celebrations over the traitor's death. His message was simple, even in the face of betrayal. Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death is at your elbow. Be just now. The plague raged on, thinning the empire's strength. Marcus himself grew weary, worn by both age and unrelenting responsibility. Yet even in his final campaigns on the northern frontier, surrounded by snow and war, he carried his philosophy like armor. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." In those words lies the essence of his life. He did not chase ideals in endless debate. He embodied them moment by moment, act by act. Imagine him there, the emperor in a rough military tent, his body aching, his mind carrying the weight of millions. Outside, soldiers whispered of plague and death. Inside, he bent over his journal, steady hand reminding himself to remain patient, to remain just, to remain calm. It is a picture not of power but of humanity, fragile, flawed, yet striving for virtue. As listeners today, far from the battlefield and the plague, we may still feel the echo of his struggles. We too face trials, illness, betrayal, disappointment, uncertainty. Though centuries divide us, the questions are the same. How should we respond? Where do we find peace when life feels overwhelming? Marcus offers no easy comfort, but a steady truth. We do not control what befalls us, only how we meet it. And here, gently, let this moment become a reminder for you. If you have found solace in these words, if you feel a quiet strength stirring as Marcus's story unfolds, I invite you to join this journey more deeply. Like the emperor's writings meant first only for himself, but now a gift for the world. Your support ensures that these timeless reflections continue to reach others. A like, a share, or a simple subscription to Still Within is not just an action. It is a way of keeping wisdom alive in a world that longs for calm. As Marcus's life drew toward its close, he did not seek statues or songs. He sought only to be true to himself, to live each day in harmony with reason, justice, and the nature of the universe. And so his reign, though burdened by plague, betrayal, and war, became not a tale of despair but of enduring resilience. He showed us that even when the weight of an empire presses upon one's shoulders, the inner citadel remains unshaken if guarded well. And tonight, as you rest, let that citadel be yours. The end came not in the marble halls of Rome, but on the cold frontier, far from the comfort of home. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, spent his final years with soldiers, not senators. His empire was threatened by waves of invaders pressing on the northern borders, and even as age and illness weighed upon him, he chose to remain at their side. This too was part of his philosophy, to fulfill the duties appointed by nature, regardless of weariness, regardless of personal cost. By the year 180, his body was fragile, weakened by years of toil, disease, and endless responsibility. Yet those around him spoke of his calm, his quiet presence that steadied even in the darkest hours. He did not cling desperately to life nor shrink from death, for Marcus had long trained himself to see death not as an enemy, but as part of the natural order. It is not death that a man should fear, he once wrote, but never beginning to live. And so in his final days, he lived with the same purpose that guided him through decades of trial. Imagine the scene. A gray dawn over the Danube, the camp stirring as soldiers prepare for another day. In a modest tent, the emperor lies weak upon his bed, his breath shallow, yet his mind awake. His son Commodus is summoned, though their relationship is strained. Advisors whisper, soldiers wait, but Marcus's concern is not for legacy carved in stone or for monuments to his reign. His concern is for character, for virtue, for the example he leaves behind. He does not rage against the inevitable. Instead, he embraces it. He reminds those close to him, perhaps in words, perhaps only in presence, that everything born must one day return. To return to nature is no tragedy. To return unwilling, clinging and trembling, that is the tragedy. The emperor who carried the weight of an empire chooses instead to release it with grace. Yet his final act is not silence. Even near death, Marcus's thoughts extend outward, toward the people he served, toward the universe that shaped him. He had often written that the measure of a life is not its length, but its depth. He now embodied that truth. Though weakened in body, he remained strong in spirit, calm in the face of the unknown. Some historians say that as his strength faded, he refused food, hastening the end so that nature could take its course. It was not despair, but acceptance. To Marcus, to linger in half-life unable to serve was to deny the natural rhythm. Better to yield when the time had come, to step aside for the next generation and to embrace the cycle of existence. When death arrived, it was quiet, like the extinguishing of a lamp at dawn. The soldiers who had fought under him mourned deeply, for they knew they had lost not only a commander but a guide, a man who ruled not by fear, but by example. Rome would never see such an emperor again, but death did not end his influence. Though his empire would stumble, though his son Commodus would squander much of what Marcus had preserved, the words he left behind in his journals endured. Meditations never intended for others became a timeless companion for those seeking wisdom. From generals to presidents, from monks to modern readers searching for calm, his reflections continue to whisper across centuries. Think of this: an emperor's marble statues crumble, his coins fade, his empire long since gone, yet the words he scribbled in solitude remain alive, printed in countless languages, shared in quiet rooms, whispered before sleep. They remind us that the greatest legacy is not power, not wealth, not fame, but wisdom practiced in the midst of trial, and this is the heart of his gift. Marcus Aurelius does not speak to us as an emperor towering above. He speaks to us as a fellow traveler, fragile and finite, searching for steadiness amid storms. He admits his struggles, anger, distraction, fear, and shows us the path through them. His honesty is his strength, and his strength is our inheritance. Pause here and let that truth settle. You do not need to be an emperor to practice virtue. You do not need armies or palaces to find calm. You need only the willingness to look within, to guide your thoughts, to choose kindness when cruelty tempts, to accept what you cannot change, and to act with courage where you can. Perhaps this is why Marcus resonates so deeply today, especially in a restless world. Our burdens may not be empires, yet they weigh heavily still. Uncertainty, anxiety, the constant noise of modern life. His words remind us that peace is not found in escape, but in presence, not in controlling the world, but in mastering ourselves. And so his legacy is not confined to history books. It lives each time a person pauses before reacting in anger, each time someone forgives instead of seeking vengeance, each time a soul chooses patience in the face of difficulty. His empire has long crumbled, but his wisdom remains unshaken, because it rests not on marble but on truth. And here, as we near the close of this journey, let me gently invite you again. If Marcus's story has brought you calm, if his reflections have offered you comfort tonight, consider joining us on this path. A quiet act, liking this story, sharing it with a friend, subscribing to Still Within, is how we ensure that voices of timeless wisdom continue to reach those who need them most. As you drift toward sleep, carry this thought: Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, faced plague, betrayal, and death, yet remained steady. You too can remain steady. Within you lies the same capacity for calm, for virtue, for resilience. The storms may come, but the citadel within you stands firm if you choose to guard it. So let go now. Breathe. Rest. The weight of your world, like the weight of an empire, can be set down, if only for this night. In stillness you are free. Centuries have passed since Marcus Aurelius laid down his pen and closed his eyes for the final time. Rome has fallen, its temples now ruins, its banners long forgotten, and yet his voice continues to echo, carried not by monuments of stone but by words alive in the human heart. The question remains for us here and now. How do we take his wisdom, born in a world of emperors and legions, and carry it into our daily lives, into the quiet struggles of the modern age? We may not command armies or govern empires, but we each carry a private empire within, the empire of our thoughts, our choices, our responses to what life unfolds. Marcus taught that no matter how chaotic the external world becomes, within us lies a citadel no one can breach unless we open its gates. The news cycle may roar, deadlines may press, relationships may fray, yet the citadel remains if we choose to guard it. What does it mean to guard this inner fortress? It means pausing when anger surges, asking, is this within my control or beyond it? It means choosing patience when irritation tempts, kindness when bitterness whispers, clarity when confusion clouds. It means remembering, as Marcus did, that we are not promised tomorrow. Awareness of life's fragility transforms how we live today. Consider the small burdens you carried into this day. Perhaps it was a sharp word from a colleague, a worry about money, a plan gone astray. Each felt heavy in the moment. But now step back as Marcus would. See them against the vastness of time. Will these things matter in a month, a year, a decade? Or are they passing clouds, momentary storms? Perspective does not erase difficulty, but it shrinks it to its proper size. And what of joy? Marcus reminded himself daily to be grateful for the simple gift of being alive. You do not need an emperor's palace to experience gratitude. Look around you, even now. The breath filling your lungs, the quiet comfort of a safe place to rest, the chance to listen to stories that guide you inward. Gratitude is not found in grand events. It is found in attention. To notice is to cherish, and to cherish is to live fully. There is also the matter of legacy. Marcus did not seek fame, yet his private reflections became his lasting gift. So ask yourself, what legacy are you building, not in marble but in moments? Each act of patience, each word of encouragement, each quiet choice of virtue, these shape the world far more than applause ever could. The empire of your character endures even when titles, possessions, and recognition fade. In our restless modern world where distraction is constant, the practice of returning to stillness is itself an act of rebellion. Marcus wrote by lamplight to center his mind. You can find your own rituals. Perhaps it is a few moments of silence before sleep, a deep breath before answering the phone, a walk without headphones, listening only to the rhythm of your steps. These are modern meditations, gateways to the same calm the emperor sought. Remember too that Marcus did not live untouched by struggle. He felt frustration, sorrow, even despair at times. His greatness lies not in never faltering, but in rising each time with renewed clarity. So when you stumble, and you will, do not judge yourself harshly. Instead, return to the wisdom he repeated. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Your next action is always within reach. And here let me gently remind you, if these reflections bring you calm, if this journey into Stoic wisdom steadies your heart, consider walking with us further. Supporting Still Within, through a like, a share, a subscription, helps this lantern of wisdom glow for others wandering in the dark. Just as Marcus's words have reached across centuries to touch you, your small act may carry them to someone who needs them tomorrow. Now, as we draw near to the close of this story, let Marcus's legacy rest not only in memory but in practice. Imagine carrying a fragment of his calm into your morning. Imagine facing irritation with patience, fear with perspective, uncertainty with trust. Imagine ending each day not with regret but with gratitude, knowing you lived as best you could. This is the gift Marcus offers, not a distant philosophy but a living way. And so tonight, let go of the empire of worries. Let the noise of the world recede. Within you the citadel is quiet, secure, unshaken. Like Marcus, you can set down the weight, breathe, and be free. His story has ended, but yours continues. Carry his wisdom forward, not as words on a page but as strength in your heart. Rest now. Be still within.